Hi everyone, I'm David Barroux from the French newspaper Les Échos. Welcome to the Nordic Talk. The idea is really to say we all face the same problems. We all need to find solutions. We need to find solutions that work quick. To be efficient is our new challenge. And we cannot do this on our own. We need to exchange ideas around the world to find the best solution. And to do that, what the Nordic Talks are trying to do is to reunite people from different countries, the Nordic countries, and today from France. We're going to talk today about three subjects: green living, urban planning, and wood building. Cities are at the core of the development of our societies, but we face huge problems. How can we solve and how can we cope with those problems? Our first Nordic talk today, this morning, is on green living, green urban spaces, healthy, livable neighborhoods. And to talk about these key subjects, I have two guests today. On the other side, Kaisa Spilling, who is development manager at Forum Virium Helsinki in Finland. Good morning, Kaisa.
Good morning.
And just next to me, I have Dominique Alba, who is Directrice Générale of APUR, the Atelier Parisien d'Urbanisme. It's created by the Paris city and other in the Paris area to try to find a solution for urbanism challenges. Good morning, Dominique.
Hello, good morning.
As I said, we live in cities, but cities are polluted. Cities are also facing challenges like congestions, pollution, traffic jam. And we need also to reintroduce some kind of green in the cities. We need to make sure that the way where we spend the most time, because we cannot go in the countryside every day, are actually livable. Keisa, in the Nordic countries, you've been thinking about those subjects for maybe quite some times. If I tell you that this is an important subject, I'm sure you agree. But in terms of introduction, can you tell us how you see this problem in your city, like Helsinki, or in the Nordic countries in general?
Yes. Could I introduce myself a bit so that you know where I come from? I could show my slides now. My name is Kaisa Spilling and I come from Forum Virim Helsinki, the city-owned innovation company. And can you see my slides?
The slide will come. Just go ahead. Can we show the...
Yeah. And today we're talking about creating green and healthy cities. But today it doesn't look so green in Helsinki, but the nature is still near. So it's about minus 10 degrees cold. And yes, we can go to the next slide. So the city of Helsinki has the vision to become the most functional city in the world. And it also tries to reach the ambitious goals to become carbon neutral by 2035. And us at Forum Virim Helsinki, the city-owned innovation company, we help the city to reach these goals by co-creating together with the public sector, with companies, with the academia, and of course, with the residents. Next slide, please. So, like other Nordic cities, Helsinki is growing at a fast pace, and older areas are being developed to residential areas, for example, old harbour areas especially. And also, these areas provide perfect settings for experimentation and innovation. But we also know that densification then provides problems for biodiversity and the resilience of green infrastructure. Next, please. And our urban lab is Smart Kalasatama, one of these districts, which is also the model area for smart city development in Helsinki. And Smart Kalasatama, there's about 5,000 people living today, and there will be 25,000 by 2040. And it's really also an innovation platform for smart and green solutions. Next, please. So if we think about a smart district, so there is all smart infrastructure like smart energy networks, everything supporting smart mobility. But when it's an old harbour district, so also the green needs to be co-created. So as you see in the picture, so the trees are new, there's nothing from before. And next slide, please, so I'll tell a bit about our approach. So we have been benchmarking solutions in other Nordic cities because of the climate conditions, so something that works maybe in France might not work in all the Nordic cities. So we've been benchmarking, for example, Royal Seaport in Stockholm, Klimakvarter in Copenhagen, and Green Roof Institute in Malmö. And we have been working with the stakeholders, with urban planners, other stakeholders, and of course the residents for kind of bringing all the people together in our projects to really support good urban planning of green solutions. And also, in a way, we have been using digital tools because that's a good way to give, first of all, give possibilities for wider audiences to participate in the planning. So we've used digital tools for participatory planning, but also then brought the data to the 3D plan of the city to visualize and simulate the solutions before they are made.
Okay.
Yeah, and we have been also experimenting different kinds of modular solutions. For example, this green wall was brought to the new school in Kalastama district. First of all, it was gathering the rainwater in the solution. Then it also served for the kids to plant the plants and that way participate in bringing the green to the schoolyard. But also it's a good way to learn about biodiversity, as the whole setting attracts insects and bees, and that way really kind of brings something concrete to the picture. I can take the next slide, and it's the last one. So the city also has initiated participatory budgeting. I think you have been working with that in France, in Paris as well. And during the round last fall, we were collecting ideas from the citizens, and really it showed that green areas and parks are topping the lists of the citizens in what they really want. Mm-hmm. And in addition, so we are working with that on the Nordic level, so maybe we can talk more about that as well.
Okay, maybe just a quick follow-up question, Kaisa. What is the population in the city like Helsinki, and in terms of densification, is it a very crowded city like we have in Paris, or is it very close to the nature already?
Well, that's a good question when you ask from France. So Helsinki has 650,000 inhabitants and about 1.4 in the metropolitan area. So we're kind of small when you compare to France. And of course, we do have proportionally much more green spaces than, for example, in Paris. But now as the cities are densifying, so as the green areas are very important for the Nordics, so we really want to take this into consideration when planning the districts. Mm-hmm. And also, we think that it's really an important issue, especially when you think about the cities, all the Nordic cities and, well, the world's cities' carbon neutrality goals. So it's something that we really have to pay attention to.
But is the city growing? Is the population increasing? Do you have more and more people inside the city, or is the city spreading?
The city is growing, and like I showed on the map, so older, for example, old harbor areas are being transformed to residential areas, so it's densifying all the time. So that's kind of new for us. So earlier on, so basically the older residential areas had a forest in the backyard. So now when we're building like within the city, so that's not always the case.
So the new challenge is that you need to bring nature in new areas where people are going to live in the future, and areas that used to be industrial areas sometimes?
Yes, also that. But I also think that when making plans that fit the Nordic climate, well, the climate is changing as well, so it's also good to hear about solutions from other areas, both from the Nordic cities, but also from elsewhere in the Europe, as well, we don't know what kind of climate we're facing in the coming years.
I read when I was working on this presentation that there is something called the Nordic Smart Cities Network. Can you tell me what it is and how maybe they help you try to face those challenges?
Yes. Well, we have been working together with the other Nordic cities. The Nordic Smart Cities Network actually represents all the 5 Nordic countries: Finland, Norway, Denmark, Sweden, and Iceland. And there's currently 20 cities working together. Currently, we have a common project called Nordic Healthy Cities, and one of the topics we are working within this project is green and healthy neighborhoods. And we are really aiming to experiment, first of all, how to support the urban planning with new digital tools. And on the other hand, we are experimenting new modular solutions that may be brought in the neighborhoods that support not only kind of green infrastructure, but also kind of the inclusivity and activity of the residents, because that's something having green around does.
Okay. Thank you, Kaisa. I'm going to talk to Dominique now. We've seen the situation in a Nordic country. Nature is very close, and the city is not that big. In a city like Paris, how different is the situation? How important is this subject of green inside the city? Is it something you don't really think about because it's a big city?
Okay, thank you. Perhaps I just explain what is Apure in a few words, because I think it's necessary. It's a partnership think tank, if you could say, with public money. He's 50 years old, and it works on now very large scale because it's Great Paris scale, so it's quite 800 square kilometers superficie and 7 million people. And when it started, Apure was very strongly involved in stopping the creation of the highway along the River Seine, and also with the destruction of Paris. And in the last period, Apure was involved in creating green streets. So that means that we just grow with also what the citizens are waiting for, and meaning what the citizens are waiting for, it's what the politics are doing. Mm-hmm. I hope the citizens elect the politics, and the politics do what the citizens want. So some words about Paris. It's so different from Helsinki that I think it's not interest to compare whatever. The specificity of Paris, it has the same limit since now 160 years, because it's from the 1860.
It's surrounded by a kind of a wall.
By the peripheric.
Yeah.
That is the administrative limit of Paris. So in fact, the question of green is something very particular, because as you have to understand, in the beginning of the 20th century, we had 3 million people living in Paris in very difficult conditions. Now we have 2.2, but using Paris each day is 3.5 people inside the city. So the way the people want green space, and it was started, the green space in the cities, in the European city, the old one. At the beginning, it wasn't, the idea of the people wasn't to have green space. It was to have services and to be all together in a very, very efficient marketplace. And the green space started with the health. We need to be in a good health. And in the beginning of the 19th century, we started with trees and with gardens, like the English model. Mm-hmm. London started before and Paris did it after. And now it increases all time, because now we want to have green space everywhere. We want to have also place for agriculture, place for nice trees, because as you know, if you show on one of your slides a very, very huge tree, but to have that sort of tree in Paris, it needs a big, big space, so we have it in the woods. So the only space where you can go on with nature is the public space, and a part of the private one. The private one is on the buildings, on the wall, on the roof, on the private space in the courtyard. And by the way, we have the public space. And one thing very particular in Paris, and I don't know how it's organized in Helsinki, but that gives some possibilities to do that, like in Barcelona. And we have 28% of the superficie of Paris that is public space, and made by streets. That means
almost 1/3.
Almost 1/3. So it's a huge possibilities. It offers huge possibilities. If you take away a part of the cars that are just parked on this public space, you can do things, and you can, for example, if you take away 60,000 cars, you can put 100,000 trees.
Mm-hmm. So the idea is to maybe reduce the space allotted for cars and transform that into space for green, because we need to add green in the city.
It's one of the possibility. It's not to take the cars out of the circular lanes. It's just to say, when the car is parked, perhaps it's better to put it underground. Mm-hmm. We have enough space. We have most place underground that we need. For example, we have 500,000 cars belonging to the people living in Paris, and we have much more space in the underground. Mm-hmm. So everybody could put his car underground, but it's more expensive. So it's less expensive to put it on the street. So all the game is to take this out and to have the nature coming back.
How long, if you at Apure, when you think about long term, how long will it take to maybe transform the city in a really impactful way, that it really makes a difference, that we see actually more trees and more green in a city that has already its limits?
Perhaps two things. Cities, it never stops. It's always changes. So I think in some part it will go very quickly, and in other part it will be much more difficult. We have in Paris underground, we have the metro, so it's quite difficult. But now we also have the new metro that is expanding around Paris. It's
Grand Paris subway.
Grand Paris Express.
Yeah.
It's 200 kilometers, so it's as long as the actual metro. And the superficie is going to be more or less the 700 square kilometers I spoke about. And there, the density is not like in Paris, 20,000 people for square kilometer. It's much more like 8,000, like London. So we have there possibilities of protection of green spaces. In fact, when you look at the places that are going to be built, we have around the new stations, more or less 20 million square meters that are going to be built, and already 15 that has been built. We don't have enough space for green space. So this is a big question, because the land value is so important.
So expensive, yeah.
So expensive that nobody wants to keep it for green space. So this is going to be, I think, the fight for the politics for the next period, just to protect that. That's why we speak about trees, because trees are green space, and you can have trees and also other uses. You can walk along trees, you can put your car along trees, etc., etc. So it's perhaps a way to have a sort of green of nature inside the city.
How do you try to involve the population? Because you say politicians are there to do what the population asks them, but how do you know what the population wants and how fast you should go?
I think it was very interesting to see what happened in the last local elections in France, because quite all the programs spoke about going on with nature and with trees, especially with trees. That means that trees is really the thing you can do easily in a high-dense city. And in Paris particularly, what decided Anne Hidalgo, and she was elected in a very nice...
She's the mayor of Paris. Yeah?
She is the mayor of Paris. And in 2014, she decided to have a participative budget.
Okay.
As you spoke about Helsinki. It's 5% of the total investment budget of the city, so it's 500 million euros. So it's a huge amount of money. And the people can propose things to do, and after they vote. And a large majority of the project is about green space.
So the citizens say, we want to spend...
So the part of money the citizens are allowed to spend by themselves, a large part of it is about green space. And now you have a green building permit, if I may say it like that. So you're allowed to do things in the trees with a green permit. So it allows you to put flowers or have small gardens on the street in front of your home.
How many trees do you plan to plant in the city like Paris?
The program of Anne Hidalgo is very ambitious. It's 160,000 new trees, and part of them, it's 100,000 is around the peripheric. And it's the idea is to transform a space that was historically a green belt in the new green belt, taking place on about 1 kilometer. The peripheric is in the middle, so you have a part of it that is outside Paris in other collectivities and one inside Paris, but everybody is working together, and that's also something quite new. All those people, they just are around the table. We draw the situation, and everybody say, oh, I can do it there and there and there and there. And it's like if you take millions of good initiatives to make one project.
Have you started planting the
Yes.
trees already?
Yes, it has started already, and it was started also with citizens. Bloom Forest started on the peripheric. I think it was perhaps 1 year ago, because you have to plant in winter. But yes.
Maybe a question to both of you, Kaisa and Dominique, on the cost. It's very good to have more nature. It's very good to have more green in cities, but I'm pretty sure it's going to be quite costly. Dominique mentioned the problem of the fact that the land is very valuable, so difficult to take away land from people. But being green is costly, so how do you face this challenge of the cost, Kaisa? In Nordic countries, does it mean that you will have to increase maybe local taxes to spend more for green, or just reallocate spending? How do you face this issue of cost?
Of course, when you are planning new green, it is costly, but I mean, it has to be thought about as part of the whole infrastructure. And I don't think it's so much about the cost. It's more or less to think about these issues in a strategic way from the start. And then when you think about the benefits, so the benefits are really on people's health and and also when you plan nature-based solutions, they are often also the most resilient ones and the ones that are the most functional as well.
Mm-hmm. And in a city like Paris, what is the impact on cost of being greener?
I would say that nature is health and beauty. And for example, when you start to develop in a land, you can choose to have park, etc. And after you, it's a sort of balance between what you're going to sell for offices or private flats and the place you're going to keep for the pleasure of the city, the resilience of the city, the sharing of the city. And after you have a sort of debt, perhaps. Mm-hmm. Everybody speaks about the debt today. Mm-hmm. And this debt is on long term and it goes on with the value. So today, Paris is really a city going on quite well. Even if some people lived during the COVID, mm-hmm. many people want to stay here. Like they want to stay around Paris, and the people, they come and live in places when they think they will have place for nature and gardens, 5-minute walks, because now everybody speaks about the 5-minute walk city, and to have a garden close to your house where you can go with your children or where you can go to read a book is something tomorrow that's going to be normal, like a normal urban service. Now, this is brand new because before the normal urban service was to have metro accessibility, mobility with buses.
Efficiency.
Efficiency. And I think tomorrow it's going to be something perhaps lower, not lower, to go slowly, mm-hmm. slower, and to have just this place to just be well.
Mm-hmm. Take more time, but also enjoy it a little bit more.
Enjoy it, and perhaps you use the net to just have the communication like we have today.
Mm-hmm. A bit difficult because you have not met face-to-face and you have not visited each other's cities, but what do you think you could maybe learn from the other city and that can lead you to maybe act? Is there lessons that can be taken from other countries like Paris or others that what we've discussed about could maybe help you go faster or in a different way? Kaisa?
Well, I have lived in Paris actually as a kid, and I just love the city. And I think what we can kind of learn, for example, from the larger cities is that really in dense areas, so they attract people to be out. But then, of course, it demands planning also the green and healthy aspects within the whole structure. Mm-hmm. And yeah.
Planning,
so that's one thing.
You will and yourself, Dominique. What do you think you could learn from Nordic, where they face the same challenge but in a totally different way?
To take your bicycle when it's less than 0 degrees, because it's what we have in Paris today, and for the Parisians, it's not so evident. We think that it's not possible to do bicycle when it's winter. And by the way, now people do it more and more. And I think in your cities, you're really used to live with those sort of difference of climate. We are more used to have a sort of regular climate, and you're more used. You have this capacity to face -10, as you said, perhaps more. Also, now we have the River Seine that's floating, and it's a problem in the city. Mm-hmm. So we have to learn about that, how to live with this nature that's perhaps sometimes stronger than us.
Mm-hmm. Maybe a last question for you, Dominique, and then we will move to the Nordic Talk number 2 of this morning. Just maybe one question on regulation. Do you think that we also maybe need to change the regulation, the laws of urbanism to actually push also the private sector to be more ambitious when it comes to be green?
Oh, this is a huge question. I try to be short. We need to change the planification terms because it's really normative and it separates the functions. And everybody knows that now we want to have all the functions mixed. So we have to change the tools for that. I don't know if it's going to be more efficient using the private sector. In the last years, in the last period, when the politics are strong, it's okay with the private sector. But as soon as the politic hasn't enough power, it's very hard to control the private sector. So now things are changing a little bit because to give value to your proposals, you need to be in wood, you need to have green, etc., etc. So this changed a little bit, hoping it goes on.
Mm-hmm. Thank you, Dominique. Thank you, Kaisa. Thank you to both of you. And please don't go away. We are now going to move to our Nordic Talk number 2 on this morning's session. Thank you very much, Dominique. Thank you, Kaisa.
Goodbye. Goodbye. Happy to have met you.
Thank you.
Bon courage.
Good morning, everyone. I'm David Barroux from the French newspaper Les Échos. Nordic Talk number 2 of this morning on innovative collaboration models for sustainable urban development, meaning how can we build smarter city, more efficient cities, greener cities, and more nicer cities in a way. To talk about this subject this morning, I have two guests, Malin Hansen, who is a senior advisor at Doga, Design and Architecture in Norway. She will introduce herself in a few seconds. And just next to me, Maud Kobe, who is a French architect living between Paris and Brussels, specializes in wood building. You do a lot of wood buildings, and we have thought a lot about the future of our cities. Malin, good morning.
Good morning from Oslo.
Good morning. Maybe can you tell us a few words about yourself first and tell us how important the subjects I just mentioned are to you and all the people surrounding you in Nordic countries, and then I will ask you more questions about what should we do to face the challenges that we all face.
Yes, thank you, David. My name is Malin Hansen, and I work for Design and Architecture Norway, which is an innovation tool for the Norwegian Ministry of Trade and Industry. I work in the Department of Urban Development and have been working with this project for the past 2 years. And basically, we started up this collaboration project 2 years ago. There was a lot of talk about smart cities here in Norway, and what does it really mean? I mean, what do we do with all the technology and the data, and how to make sure that we really put the interest of citizens in focus when using all the possibilities that we have and that we can with new technology and big data. So we started a collaboration process with cities and municipalities first in Norway, and then we built a project to become a Nordic project. So we involved cities also from the other Nordic countries and other crucial stakeholders, and arranging both. We had working groups and workshops to really dive into this subject. What are a smart city in a Nordic context? What does it mean for us here in the Nordic region? I mean, we have over the past decades, we have seen private companies driving the smart city development. For example, with the Silicon Valley model in the US, where we have the sort of the private interests are crucial for this development. And we believe that in the Nordic region, we have some other values and some other perhaps main goals and also some other strongholds, which consists of our social values here in the Nordic region. So this project has basically been about to see how can cities and municipalities be in front of this development? How can they put themselves as drivers and facilitators of smart city development? And of course, in collaboration with businesses and academia, but not the least citizens, how can they take the lead in these kind of collaboration processes and really make sure that we not only benefit from the new technologies and big data, but also at the same time protect and promote the interest of our citizens in the Nordic region. So that has been sort of the main driver of this project, that how can we make sure that we not only talk about technology as a tool, technology and data as a tool, but actually walk the talk and make sure that it's the citizens' quality of life and their interests that are at heart of our smart city development.
Mm-hmm. Do you, in France, sometimes when we talk about big data, new technology, very quickly we move on to Big Brother. We're a bit afraid of the technology. How do you see that in Nordic countries? Do you think that technology is a friend or something you should be cautious about when you invite technology in your daily life of planning a smart city?
Yes, I mean that's a very interesting and relevant question, and of course we see the same problem here in the Nordic region as well. But at the same time, I think what is maybe rather unique for this region is the high level of trust between the public sector and the citizens. And I think that is really crucial in this development to build that kind of trust and not only ask the citizens to trust public institutions, but to also make sure that the public institutions earn the trust from the citizens. And so transparency, I mean, building transparency and openness to make sure that you also gain that trust that you need from citizens in order to share and use data. I think that's very, very crucial for this kind of development.
How do you try to build this trust? Is it because you share all the data that are made in open data, or is it because before you start using the data, you ask the public what they want?
Well, I don't think it's only about data. I think it's also you build trust in many different kinds of ways. I don't think you can sort of start with data sharing. I think the trust is something like fundamental that has to be in place from before in order to really get that kind of close collaboration between citizens and, for example, cities and municipalities. So I think, we don't have all the answers here in the Nordic region. We have a long way to go ourselves, but we really started to see the citizens as a great resource for urban development, and not only like some selected a selected group of citizens, but really to see how can we involve kids and young people and different kinds of groups of people. So with socio-cultural and socio-economical differences, and so many municipalities and cities are experimenting with different kinds of tools for involvement, and we have these urban living labs where sort of you build physical co-creation places where citizens are invited to meet the city, to meet the municipality, to feel that they have like insight in what the municipality is working with, and that so that you build like this equal trust, and that you also actively as a city or municipality show that you are really interested in what the citizens think and believe. Because I think for in this Nordic project with joint Nordic Smart City Vision, as the project is called, I think this human-centered smart city development is really key. And how do we not, because a smart city is not only about using technology and data, it's also about using the the citizens as a value for the development of your city or your community. So I think it's not only about data and technology, but of course it's also a lot of sort of tools and methods that you can use. I mean, I have, for example, in Iceland, they have this platform called Better Reykjavik, where citizens can submit their suggestions for community development projects, like what do they find important, what do they believe that the capital of Iceland should be working with, what kind of projects do they believe is important. We have in Finland and also in Norway, there's been a lot of experimenting with participatory budgeting projects. We have a lot of focus on data sharing, really like putting all the data out there, and the city is like going in front, showing that we want to build transparency, we want to build trust, and therefore we do this kind of initiative. So of course there's a lot of tools, but I think the trust building also starts somewhere else, and you have to. It's not like a little bit here and a little bit there. It's a long time process, and you have to be working with it constantly to earn that trust from your citizens in order to make them share, for example, data.
Thank you, Malin. Maud, you're an architect, so your background is slightly different maybe than technology. I'm not going to ask you about technology. I'd like to have the point of view on an architect of what a smart city is. It's not only about data. I think it also starts with buildings, no? And maybe new way to make buildings is... when you think about smart cities, how do you include the building into this equation?
There is a lot of different layers. Yes, we are architects, but the architects has to deal with the technology as everybody now. I will say there's maybe 3 different scales. The first scale is the intimated scale. I mean, we deal every day with the technology. And we have to be, city has to be adaptable everywhere to find connection, to have computer. I mean, everybody say now, I like to have a room, and in my room I need my connection. And with this, in this time, because people travel and because people are sharing their work at home, they have to have a very important connection. So this is this item is fundamental, so the people can have access to all information, even though in the education. But then you have the city, the scale of the society, and then all this system that we have to deal with the how we can share the heating, how we can share the light, how we can have a city that at midnight it should be dark and not light. It's useless to have offices with light. So this technology has to deal with that notions of times, the day, the night, and so on. And
so
then,
a smart city starts with a smart building, in a sense.
Yes, of course. And then after you have this scale of the city itself and the connection with the countryside, and how we can make this intelligence artificielle helping us in the good way and not to destroy us. So, for instance, when we have to refurnish a building, how we can invent a system that can say, okay, in this building we have a lot of wood, we have a lot of steel, we have a lot of glass, and then we should share this data room so that now in my next building I will find the good materials to reuse. So
the good equilibrium. We should learn from our experience. Yeah,
exactly. So I think it's like everything. It's a question of equilibrium.
In terms of building a smart city, when you start from scratch, starts from zero, it's easy. But when you are in an old environment like the old cities we have in Europe, do you think we should just tear down everything and rebuild the city to make it smarter, or can we adapt the city that we have today to make them smarter step by step? Is there a solution for this?
Yes, of course. Agility, adaptability is the key words. I mean, it's like the body. A building is, I think we should design offices or dwellings or cultural place on understanding the way that the body, the organism, the natural is so powerful, because we have this, her body have this capacity of adaptation. So if a building, you can keep the structure, like the foundation. You can keep the envelope. The envelope is good for the heating, and then after you can adapt like a system, like an irrigation, and in the clever solution, you will obviously find a solution that this building will grow and will live in for these years and the 5 years and the 10 years later.
So buildings should learn how to grow older and also regenerate, in a sense, have a second life.
Of course, building has to have second life. I mean, if everybody loves Paris, it's because we have this patrimoine, this so clever patrimoine that is that we are very fond of. But this patrimoine is nice if we can grow and evolve in the future. Otherwise, it's useless. I mean, a building, even if it's made by wood or even if it's made by biosourced materials, will be useless if nobody live inside.
Do you think that also to have maybe smarter cities, we need to make the cities smaller, or because the city seems to be getting bigger and bigger? Is this an issue that you're afraid of? Do you think that our cities are becoming too big and that...
I'm not afraid about density. I think it's really, we have to deal with this density with still agility. In France, we have a lot of contrast, and it's very interesting if you compare France to a Scandinavian country where the climate in Scandinavia is really rude, and there is a lot of water, there is a lot of mountains, so they have to deal with this nature. In France, I think we have this nature, or this
landscape.
Landscape can help us in one way, but then the problem is that we have this in between that is not good. We have the density of Paris and of the megapole, Bordeaux, Lille, and so on, and then we have this rurality that we love, and that is a patrimoine with the nature outside. And then this in between is not good. We developed for years and years industrial area,
suburb
and so on, and there is a lack of access of medicine. There is a lack of education. There is a lack of the culture, and dealing as architect, if we deal with the density, is how we can bring back this nature to the city. How the people can live with this trendless that is you have a sociability, you have networks of knowledge that is really interesting, and architect is like a sculptor. We have to deal with this mass, and then we have to figure out how we can help people to live in a nice place.
Last question, and then again I'll go to Marlene. A question about the materials. I said when I introduced yourself that you build buildings a lot in wood. You use wood.
Yes.
Why is it important for you to use this material, and why do you think it might help us in a kind of more sustainable and smarter cities? Because today's cities in Paris is mainly concrete and skyscraper, steel skyscraper and glass, but not wood.
Paris is not concrete made only. That if you look at all the district in Paris is made by wood. So history of architecture and is the same of history of the society, means that there is cycle. Yes, this is very fashion now to say that, and it should be a norm that we have to have a maximum of matériaux biosourcés in the building, of course. And the wood help us. We love wood because it's live materials, because it can give us an agility to build a system in a building, and of course because it bring us a wellness and make the people more happy in the place where they live. But I will say that yes, of course we use a lot of wood in our office. 70% of our building are mainly made by wood, but there is not only wood. It's a question of equilibrium again, and I will rather say that we have to use the good material in the good place. For instance, we try to build a wonderful project in Reykjavik in Iceland, and it was completely stupid to bring the wood from outside, because this Iceland there is no wood anymore. So we started to figure out that the material was there. I mean, the granites were there, the volcanium stone was there. So we designed a building that was by carbon, but it was made not by wood, but by stone.
You have to be smart is to use local material.
Exactly, local material, not to use this matière grise that is really bad for in the conception.
One more question, and then I'll go back to Marlene. In France, we've had experience called Réinventer Paris, Réinventer Bordeaux, reinventing cities. Can you tell us a few words about what are those ideas of reinventing cities? Why do we do that, and what does it bring to architects, urban planners, and citizens?
Yes. It was a chance for my office because it's a way that you can have access to this kind of public programma that you can have if you are not used to. For instance, you have to bring life in a new district or in the district that is in between by bringing nature, by bringing art, by bringing education. So it's architect is in the center of this intention.
It's like a challenge launched by the city who tells you, reinvent my city.
Yes, and then we are all
areas.
together, not in front of like we can have in French school. In the French school, we always have the teacher and the
student,
the student in front of. And when I studied architecture in Sweden for a few years, I was happy because the teacher was beside us. And it's this kind of logic that is very good. I mean, that we are all together, and we have to imagine the program and the architecture in the same times, and we deal with all the people that are in this process of how to build the future.
Malin, I come back to you. You said earlier during the conversation there is the Silicon Valley way, the Google way, in a sense, to do things. Do you think there is already something like a Nordic way of thinking about the future of cities? And if there is a Nordic way, what characterizes this Nordic way? How different are you?
Yes, I think it was very interesting, first of all, to listen to you, Maud. I agree with a lot of things that you are saying. So I just want to comment really shortly that we are also in this joint Nordic project. I mean, we are moving on from like talking about the people-centered cities to actually also start talking about the planet-centered cities, because it's this about like how do we bring back nature? How do we sort of create a joint understanding that we are part of a living planet and bring that back to our urban environments? I think that's very important. But yeah, I mean, as I said in the beginning, I think we have some key words here like trust and transparency and equality. We have a high quality public services. We have extensive register data, strong trust, as I said, in public organizations, and transparency also in the decision making. So I think we have some sort of Nordic strongholds to build on here, and I think it was also interesting what you said, David, because you said that it's easy to create a smart city from scratch, but I don't necessarily agree. We have, for example, the classical example from South Korea, which is called maybe the world's first smart city of Songdo, where the aim was to create a really like a smart city and using technology and data to make like this dream place to live, and this has turned out as frankly, to a failure, basically, and South Korea they admit that themselves also, that it didn't turn out the way it was supposed to, and I think one of the key issues here was that it has been a really top-down project, so it's not like. Which this Nordic project is all about, to really how do you involve the citizens, how do you create these collaborative bottom-up processes. I think that's really the key here, and that you have that you don't use the technology and data just because you can, but that you really have what are the real challenges that we want to solve, and what are the real needs of the city. So in Design and Architecture Norway, we use design thinking as a tool in this kind of projects, and I think that's a really good tool, and I think cities and municipalities also in if you are not already doing it, I think you should start exploring that way of thinking and that tool of design thinking in urban development processes, to really not start with the solution, but really start with the challenge. What is the challenge that we want to solve, and to as the second, to really look into what are the needs of the citizens, what is the target group, who do we want to use this project or this solution or this service, and what are the needs of the users. Because if you just do things because you can, I think the chance of succeeding are maybe smaller than if you really ask yourself, but what do we want to solve, and what are the needs of the users. So
maybe I'm too Maybe I'm too French, but I think that there's always a risk that if you ask the people what they want, is that only those who complain, those who are unhappy, that will say that give their opinion. So how do you face this, that you don't only hear the noise of those who complain, but I can also hear those who have something positive to say?
Yeah, I think it goes back a little bit to what I said in the beginning, that you have to, as a city, this is a constant process. It's not like once every month you do some citizen involvement. I think this is a constant way of thinking, a constant process, and you have to earn the trust of your citizens, and you have to show, as a city or municipality, you have to show the citizens that you are interested in what they are saying, and you are interested in their input. And you also, of course, I mean, in Norway we talk about the silent voices, and you, for example, now you were talking about the development of suburbs, and you have maybe some people that are not that used to be like actively taking into the urban development processes, and that people are, the cities and municipalities or communities show that they really value their opinion. So I think this is you have to be. This is an active process. You can't just like sit back and say that on Tuesday from 2 to 4 o'clock you invite those that are that want to share their opinion, because then you can be quite sure that you have the same 20 people that show up every time to perhaps complain. So you have to try out different methods and tools. You have like for the young people, for example, the youth, you have digital tools, you have apps, you have voting systems. They are constantly using all kinds of social media applications that you can experiment with. For kids, for example, in Norway, we have this tool called Kids Tracks, which I think almost all municipalities in Norway, at least the majority, has been using so far. That you can sort of map like how kids are using the cities. You can make sure that the voices of not only young people but really kids are heard in the urban development processes. That how are they using different areas? What do they like? What do they don't like? What are they afraid of? What do make them happy? And then you have sort of a great pool of knowledge from that kind of citizen group that you perhaps wouldn't get in contact with otherwise, because I mean, let's face it, we also live in a political world where maybe the people that are the voters maybe sometimes are the most crucial target group, and so we have like silent voices, for example, as the kids, that you have to put, as cities and municipalities, you have to make some extra effort to make sure that their voices are heard, and you have to have it as a goal, like baked into your way of thinking, and as a main goal of your urban development.
Kids
and I think that's really important.
Yeah. Kids don't vote, but they should be able to express themselves. In a word of, in kind of a conclusion mode, do you think that France is also ready for this kind of approach, or do you think that actually it's too risky and too costly to rebuild and rethink totally the cities we live in?
Still, it's really a question of equilibrium. All the city in France, and I mean, you have very, very big city and you have a small city, but a city that is still alive is a city that is able to be more adaptive to the future, to the youth. I mean, human being has to be in the center of the debate. Why are we designing building? Why are we keeping this building? What is it for? And the notion of reversibility is always the question that we should have. Reversibility of adaptability. This building will be adaptive for a family or for a single person or for myself. But if I am 20 years old, I don't behave like I am 40 or 70 and so on. And the technology and the innovation has to be in the service for that to help us. Yes, of course. But then it's like everything, you have to catch the best of everything, but you don't have to be naive at the same time. French people are very critical for the new and the innovation. But then when they found that their comfort, they like them, and then they go quicker on that innovation. But
it might take more time for us to adopt an innovation, but
yes.
when we think it has positive impact, then we
exactly,
go full speed,
of course. But we don't have to be ashamed about our system, even though we have to keep in mind that we have mixed. The society very complex, and the landscaping is very complex, and the climate is changing also. So we have to use the contextualization of the city, the countryside, the France, or to be in Norway is not the same. We don't have the same law, so we don't. We have to find the best on that things, and I really do agree with you. We have to be optimistic. If you always think about problem, we will never go in the future. So I like the idea that you have to find a solution, and then you look at the solution 5 years after, and then you say, okay, what was good and what was not good. And then you bring back again. And in France, the problem is that the politics system is that we are always looking at the short times, and we have to deal with these long times.
The issues we're facing are long term, and sometimes we are always looking for short term answers.
Exactly. So we have to be careful of that. And the technology doesn't help us, because we get the information in 5 minutes now or in 1 second. So we have to read back to read again the book, and to understand what we did very nice in the nice way in the past, our patrimoine, our heritage, the art craft, the way that we have to use the wood, the earth, the concrete with the wood and other materials that was always used before, and it's now we are in the present, but we don't have to destroy everything. We don't have to reinvent everything. No, reinvention is useless. It's just to find a good idea. It's useless.
One last question, and to you, and then again to Malin. You studied, you said, in Sweden as an architect. So, what do you think maybe France could learn, be inspired by what we see in Nordic countries? And then I will ask you, Malin, the same questions. You've seen France also, you understand French. So what do you think maybe you could learn from what you see in our country, and can help you act maybe?
I would say that in Scandinavia country, there is this love of the nature, and I like the idea that you have to deal with the light, you have to deal with the climate, and the people they have to invent place where it's nice to live. And in France, we have this contrast of society that is, we have a lot of problem with the society, but you can find the same problem in Scandinavia also. But there is no, they are very good to analyze the phenomena. In France, we have this heritage of this past that is sometimes is really boring, and you have this kind of rule, and when you study, you say, okay, this is the rule, and there is another rule, and so on. And in Sweden, I love the idea that the teacher helps you to analyze the phenomena of the nature. For instance, if you have a street and there is a road, in France we will build a concrete road, say, okay, this is one point, and we go to the other point, and then we force the people to go on that road. And in Sweden, we learn how to analyze the path of the people working on the grass, and then you understood that, okay, maybe it's better to analyze the way where the people want to go, and then after you cross the road. Mm-hmm. So we have to part from the earth, the reality, not only
the rule. Yeah, be more pragmatic in a sense.
Yes.
Yeah. Yes. Malin, what do you think you could learn maybe from our experience in France and in other countries?
Well, I have to say that I was in Mexico City for a few years ago, where Anne Hidalgo was chosen as the new chair for the C40 network, and I must say that was one of the most inspiring talks in that kind of in that topic, the topic of urban development and sort of how she managed to really vision the future and and be like really extremely inspiring. So I've been following a little bit what has been happening in Paris, and I think, I mean, it's not that not easy. I mean, you have this grand European capital and maybe some more traditional citizens, some of them at least, and the way she has been working with. I mean, making a more walkable and livable city center. I know everybody is not happy, but that's always the case. And I think we are now. I mean, the SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals. We say that our aim is to reach them in 2030 or before 2030. And I think. Well, frankly, we have to really step up and start doing some real work and not only talking. And I think this has been the case in Paris to an extent, and which has been really inspiring. And I think we can learn a lot from that also in the Nordic region.
Okay.
And yeah.
Thank you very much, Malin. Thank you very much, Maud.
Thank you, David.
Talk to you soon. Bye bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Bye.
Bye bye. Thank you, Matt.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm David Barroux from the French newspaper Les Échos. Happy to see you again, talk to you again for the Nordic Talk number 3 with the very good title, I Feel Wood. Go the Nordic way is that we need to build more wood, to use more wood, and we can do everything and nice things in wood. To talk about this subject, two guests this morning, Nikolai Sveistrup, who is the CEO and founder of Urban Agenda. He's Danish and he is in Denmark, I guess. Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
And just next to me, Andrew Todd, who is an architect famous for building in wood, using wood. He has been living in France for 25 years. He crossed the channels and he has decided to stay in France.
And become French.
You became French. And thank you very much, both of you, for being here today and talking about the very interesting subject of wood construction. Maybe we'll start with you, Nikolai. why is it important, according to you, to maybe start to use more wood as a construction material? If you would like to introduce this subject with a more general purpose, of course, you're welcome, but talk about wood, please.
Yes, of course, I will talk about wood, and thank you very much for that I can participate in this Nordic talk. I think one of the most important thing is that wood is one of the materials that we can use when we want to save the climate. I have a very big agenda in my company. I'm, as you said, the CEO of Urban Agenda, but I'm also associated in the Copenhagen Institute for Future Studies. I really think that the issue for us is now to look into the planetary boundaries and regeneration. Well, you know that when we use wood, next please. When we use wood, it's very useful to adopt the CO2 and make the CO2 reduction that is very important for the climate. So, you know, here in Denmark, we have this goal for 70% reduction in 2030. But that's not the goal. The goal is, of course, not to do any harm. So wood gives biological cyclicity and regeneration. So that's the reason why we have to use wood. Mm-hmm. Another reason is that wood is, that's why we call this I feel wood. Wood is very, very good material and is very close to nature, is directly from nature into our buildings, into our houses. You can see it, you can smell it, you can touch it, you can feel it, and that's what we call here in the Nordics a human scale for the way we live. It's in our houses and in our cities. It's very important. Next, sorry, and next again. It's very important that we have this this way of doing things and using the wood is very, as I said. One of the actions to tackle climate change, but it's also because the way we are building today is very bad. We really, when we use concrete and other materials, we really have a big carbon emission. We are also working on reducing that, but when you use wood, you are already over that step. And then, of course, it's also, here in the Nordics anyway, a very close material and, as I said, regenerative material. So you can just go out in the wood. Of course, you can make a wood production, but you have to go. You can go out and pick up the wood very close to where you want to build the houses. And that's one of the issues that there's very big areas in the Nordics that where not so many people live, and this is also a driver for innovation and a boot for some of the rural communities. Mm-hmm. Next. One of the things that's very important, this is not all made by wood, this picture I'm showing here. It's a new exhibition center in the northern part of Norway, but the Nordics are very often told, and in statistics, the most happiest people in the world. And of course, we think that one of the reasons is that this livable, high-quality surroundings is a birthright for the people, and that's why architecture and the way we use architecture and the materials, the way we live, is so important for us. So. When we do big projects, we really like to showcase new solutions for a better life and quality in life. Next. One of the issues that we are very famous, especially here in Denmark, but also in our neighbor countries, is our design. We have a very, very big tradition, and it's several hundred years ago. They managed to make one school for architects and art and combine these things, and that's why we have this big tradition to make very beautiful architecture here in Denmark, but also for our good colleagues in the other Nordic countries. And just one short quote here. I'm not going to do all the quote, but this guy who made these chairs from the True Nordic Design said, "Wood is nature. and working with wood is a material reconnects you with the nature that we are supposed to be a part of, and that's, I think, is a very strong issue. Mm-hmm. That was my introduction. I have some examples too, but maybe we should. Shall I proceed with them now?
A few questions first, and then maybe we can look at your examples. But how widely is wood used today in the Nordic countries? Is it everything is built in wood, or is it something just for some small houses? How often do you use wood, and how new is your approach to wood building?
Well, I have to have two answers for that question, because we have a very long tradition in the Nordics for building wooden houses. It's also, of course, depending of the materials we have. So when you go to Sweden or Norway, they have a lot of, I think 80% of something like that is wooden houses. The way we build today is more concrete, it's more steel, it's more glass, and that's where we have the change right now, because that's why you have two answers, because the answer right now is that we are going back to build more wooden houses, and we are also exploring how to build in the high and in a better quality and more healthy ways. We really have a lot of housing, but when we also live in the Nordics, it's very cold, so that's why we also develop the bricks and the concrete and so on to keep the warm. Mm-hmm. But still, the wood is a material where you can use that. If you go into a hut in a 200-old hut in the Nordics, you can have this big wooden sticks and still have the warm inside. So,
but do you think there's a new appetite? There is a new appetite today for wood, more than there was a few years ago.
Definitely. When you see my screen here, it's behind me. It's a new wooden city building here. We're going to build here in Copenhagen, and you can see a lot of places where. I mean, the new thing is to use wood and to make the skyscrapers, and Nordic architects actually do go all over the world and make new nice buildings in wood. And the idea for that is that we have to build these things so we get closer to in a human scale.
Mm-hmm. Before we move on to Andrew, can you maybe tell us more about a few examples of new projects in wood in the Nordic countries that you think are interesting?
Yeah. Well, I just took a different kinds. We should take the next picture, please. Yes, this one is a new small town we are building here in Copenhagen, and as you can see, we are trying to make it a low-scale city. If you see the drawings on the left, it's where we have these traditions of how we build. We have these cities, and we have the villages, and then we try to make a new typology. It's Henning Larsen Architects, and try to make this new city where you are very, very close to the nature. You almost have no cars, or you don't have cars inside of the city. You have some other transportation systems. So it's one way, and of course they have chose to build in wood. The next one, please. This is in the central of Oslo, the capital of Norway, and as you can see here, we also build in wood. Of course, you need the glass, because you have to have some windows and to protect that. But as you can see, we try to make a solution where you have this greenery too. It's very important, as Maud also and the former speakers was talking about the green in the city, and the wood is also a big part of that. And this is also a building where one of the principles of the Nordic tradition is that we have to make a multi-purpose building. So you can do a lot of things. You can live in this tower. You can have public areas. You can shop. You can and then it's actually the portal for the railway. Mm-hmm. Next, please. Yeah. Well, please, if you have any questions, just
No, please to tell us more about this
yes,
one. The last one.
The next one is not all built in wood, but I love this. This place is built in the middle of nowhere, in mid Norway. It's by Snøhetta, but it's a pavilion where you can sit and explore the nature, the reindeer. But the things why I took this one with this is where I mean the picture is showing that you can feel what the architects have made it, so you can actually see it's like it have been eroded by natural forces like wind and running water, and then it have this it's really a soft organic inner core, and that's one of the things that you can do with wood. You cannot do that with so many other materials. Very fast, three more. Okay. The next one here is, we are in the Nordics, but we are also Vikings, and that's why we make this. I think in all the capitals we have these different ways of making a harbor bath. In Finland, of course, they have. I mean, there are 5.5 million people, and there are over 3 million saunas. So this way to evolve with the nature is very very important for them, and they also got a very famous architect, Alvar Aalto, and he was always saying that form must have a content, and the content must be linked with nature. And I think this is a very good example for that, because it's just right to the sea, and you can just jump in the sea and go in and take the warm. Next, please.
Last one.
Yeah, two more. Sorry.
Okay.
Sorry. Just one quick one here from Denmark. It's a very new office building. Just want to show you how the construction is. When you can see all the constructions, is always also a very good principle that you can actually see the construction of the house. Now we're talking about wood constructions today. This is one of the ways that you really can see how the house is constructed. And the last one here I will show you. Maybe I have one more. But the last one here is I will going to talk about is from Sweden, where you have this principle for the whole municipality that they want to have 50% of all new buildings should be built in wood. So that's a very big issue. I mean, that's where I'm talking about going into the political arena and make decisions of how to do it. Yeah. Now the last one is shown. Then I just one quick word about that. It's from Iceland. Then I have been all the Nordic countries around. It's a farmhouse actually, but as you can see at the last bullet, it's also can be reused. It's also one of the very important things that we discuss here. That's we're not going to build one house for one purpose. We can use it for different purposes, and this one could actually be a sports hall if we don't have agriculture there later on.
Okay, thank you very much. Yeah. Let's move on to Andrew. We've seen so many examples that would make me say that wood is definitely the solution. Is it the solution for everything? Is it just part of the solution? What is your approach to this wood material as a construction material?
Well, I think what Nikolai was saying is very interesting in terms of where you come from, what sort of wood tradition you inherit, which is, is something that's happened in the past, sometimes in a small way. We only have a little bit left a long time ago in the past. And we're facing a future today, which is extremely challenging, to put it mildly, where, we have these crazy ambitions of reducing CO2 emissions by 70% by 2030 in Denmark. We're talking about a kind of revolution, and we're taking the pieces of the past and seeing how we can actually, move extremely fast towards meeting these new objectives. Now, just in sort of statistical terms, the construction industry, the built world, generates roughly a third of CO2 emissions. We are now building energy-efficient buildings. We're also renovating old buildings, which are not so efficient from an energy standpoint. And the way the buildings are made is becoming more and more the strongest lever for getting that carbon total down. And just to sort of explain this in a slightly gross way, if you make a building out of concrete, for every ton of concrete, you're emitting a ton of CO2. you're doing a lot of other things as well. You're digging up beaches. You're burning a lot of fossil fuels. You're transporting sludge. You're creating very kind of noisy and dirty and dusty construction sites. Wood actually consumes and stores its own weight in CO2 when you use it as a construction material. Obviously, if you burn it, most wood is used for fuel, the CO2 goes back into the air. So the fact of actually capturing it and putting it into a building is a net benefit for the environment. So, this is obviously everyone's aware of the value of this. The question is, how do we get there? How do we actually produce enough? How do we extract it in a way which is not going to, despoil this very nice nature that Nikolai was talking about? That's going to maintain biodiversity, and how are we going to also work, internationally? This is a global question between industrial bodies at different scales. Given that we do have these very different cultural starting points as far as wood's concerned.
When I listen to you, the answer is yes. Wood is the solution, but when I look around, wood is not the solution used today by most of the architects. So why is it that cities or even in the countryside, we don't use more woods? What are the challenges? Why don't we go faster?
So in France, we have a multiple set of challenges. If you look we compare ourselves to other sort of European classmates like Germany and Austria and also the Nordic countries. There's not much of a forest in France. It's 30% of the land covering. It's very often, broadleaf trees, which are not as easy to use for structural timber. So countries like Germany, which has, a huge stock of coniferous trees, they've already got a kind of industrial head start on that. Now, in France, there are other issues, as we're sort of playing catch up on that, which are to do with building regulations. They're to do with economic tensions between different sectors. Obviously, the concrete industry, which has been predominant in France for many decades now, since sort of post-war redevelopment, doesn't want to give up.
Wood is the enemy.
It is in a way, and it's not. It's not a level playing field. Because a concrete building, from a technical standpoint, for someone like me, is relatively simple to make. If you start making things in wood, you have to ask a huge number of questions about condensation, about acoustics, about fire resistance. Because industrial wood, and I want to show you some examples of how this works structurally, is developing so fast at the moment, we're kind of making up the rules as we go along. There's another big issue in France, I think, which has to be said, which is that education, both of architects and engineers, is lagging very, very far behind. Mm-hmm. There's one school in Nancy where wood is a bit of a topic, but I don't think you shouldn't really treat it as a specialized discipline. It's really, it's like the kind of the vaccine for the climate crisis. Everybody should be working on it instead of having it pushed into a corner. So it's a problem for me. I can't find qualified architects coming out of school. I have to take on training people. I also have to, do kind of R&D, making up the regulatory decisions and innovating as we go along.
Maybe we'll see a few examples, but before, just a question on: is wood just for nice houses of people who can afford it, or is it a material that can be used really widely for large urban planning development and also for tall building? What are the limits of use of wood if we add the architect and if we add the timber?
Yeah, there are no limits. I mean, there are crazy things going on in Tokyo. They're planning to build a 350-meter tall skyscraper all out of wooden structure. It will cost a great deal more than a conventional building, but that's a pilot scheme where the government has just decided to make a demonstration of Japanese prowess. The Japanese are also quite far behind in terms of engineered timber, so it's sort of a question of national pride to catch up in that way. I think one of the obstacles to its uptake in France is the cost. Once you get above, say, 2 or 3 floors, it starts to be a little bit more expensive than a traditional building. Now, these are false costs as well, because I don't hate to keep attacking the concrete industry, but they do have a lot of externalized costs which society pays for in the long run, which are with degradation of ecosystems, dealing with pollution and things like this. So I think if the government were to actually really level the playing field in terms of the global cost, and the new environmental regulations which are being debated right now in France may serve to do this a little bit, then there's a chance that we can do that. But this is all, it's small potatoes, really. I think we need to do a kind of handbrake turn in the middle of the highway and start heading the other way. And we need, as a societal effort and, as a government effort, we need everybody saying, like, this is an emergency, as Greta Thunberg says. We have to take the appropriate measures. It's not just, putting your foot on the brake that's going to do it.
Let's see a few images. Some of them have already been shown on the screen, but can you tell us about what you did or what you would like to do, how wood can be used? So if we
go back to the beginning
of the slides, la première slide.
What's interesting, wood, as Nikolai was saying, is a very traditional material. What has changed now, the revolution that we're living through in real time, is it's become an innovative material, a precise material, and something which you can do extraordinary things in, which you can't really do in another material. And what you're looking at here, just to give some idea to the viewers, is a contemporary construction site. This is a building that I designed and built a few years ago in the Pas-de-Calais. It's the Elizabethan Theatre of the Château d'Ardelot. And you saw on that first slide these very, very large curved wooden panels. This is the structure of the building. This is cross-laminated timber. It's one of the main new products, which effectively replaces concrete. We could do every building in this. Every concrete building is a planar structural material. We had to deal, in this case, as a theatre, with questions of acoustic insulation, and also particularly in terms of fire resistance. If we see the next image, you can see in the auditorium that the wood is exposed.
Yep.
Now, this is very often, covered up with other treatments. This is kind of an industrial material, but we not only doing it in a curved shape, which was the first time it was done at the scale of a whole building, but leaving it as the principal material of the building was a big demonstration of not just the technical potential, the precision, but also, the atmosphere. You can imagine this is a very warm feeling space. Singers and musicians who work there like the sound that it gives and the atmosphere that it gives very much. This involved weeks and weeks and weeks of discussing with the local fire brigade, who I have to say were very, very accepting, very imaginative, but we had to put the time in. There was a learning curve. Mm-hmm. So I think that, then there's a question of, how do we, in whose benefit and who funds, this kind of R&D, if it's done on a building-by-building basis. I think there needs to be a bit of a step change there. Okay. If we have a look at the next slide, you can see the building from the outside lit up at night. Very nice. It has these 12-meter bamboo poles all around it set in this parkland. And we're very proud that this was named the best wooden building in the world. It's the first time that's been the case in France in the World Architecture News Awards. Now, to keep going, still with some of our projects, I was talking about this question of precision and innovation with this traditional material. If we could have the next slide. This is a project for a demountable building, all in biosourced materials, which is modular, which we are proposing as part of the tender process for the Paris 2024 Olympics, because there'll be so many temporary buildings. Paris has taken the brave decision not to build many new buildings for this Games and to have 50% of the carbon total of the London Games, which were only 9 years ago. So this building here, if we go ahead to the next image, you can see is made of these sort of wooden towers, which are flat packed. It's a bit Swedish here. It's a bit sort of IKEA.
It's the Lego type of building, we should say to our Danish friends, yeah?
Exactly. With the advantage here, this is using straw bales for an interior application, but we've also we're doing this as a joint venture with CBS Lift Team, who are a very, very good carpentry company. Mm-hmm. You can make a fully acoustically insulated and thermally insulated building, which goes up in a week. Now, you couldn't really do that in other materials. You wouldn't really want to do that in metal, but there's something about the warmth, the robustness, the fact that wood is a finished material and a structural material, which makes this such an inviting idea. If we go to the next slide, you can also see this is sort of, cut away at the roof. And then the next one, you can compose this in different shapes. You can make a kind of arena, and you can have it for a week, for a year, or and move it around or tour around with it, which is one possible thing that we're looking into at the Olympics. So, this is not. If I'd thought of this 20 years ago, this is an example of how we might use it in Esch-sur-Alzette, which is Capitale Européenne de la Culture next year, as a big open-air arena for a performance for 5,000 people. And the next slide, I think, is the last one of this. So,
That's after COVID, yeah.
That is indeed after COVID. It's weird to put so many people in one space, even on a computer screen, I have to tell you. It's quite disturbing, but we hope we're going to get there. It's July 2022, so we allow ourselves to dream. It's also, but all of these buildings are very well ventilated, so they're actually kind of COVID friendly in a way. So, it's a completely new atmosphere. It's a material that we think we know from far in the past. And yet we're applying it in completely new ways.
Yeah.
We're making, particularly in Austria and Germany, there are a great many modular prefab buildings which are not repetitive. You can do pretty much what you like. It has this inherent flexibility to it.
Nikolai, getting back to you. Andrew mentioned cost. He mentioned also regulation. He mentioned concrete in the sense that there is actually maybe more regulation or more skepticism when it comes to wood than when it comes to concrete, for which we just use it and without really looking at the external cost. In terms of regulation, do you think that also the Nordic countries have they moved along? Have they changed things to make wood more efficient and push the private sector to invest more in wood? Or do you think that actually regulations need to be a kind of a driver if you want to accelerate this path to wood building?
Well, actually, I think there's a very interesting development going on here, especially in the Nordics and especially in Denmark, where the companies, the private sector is taking the responsibility. Right now, last year we had these climate commissions where different part of the industry was set up in groups and to give some ideas of what could be done. And right now, it's actually the industry, the companies who's pushing the government to make these action suggestions come into reality. So the government today is very green, but it's been pushed by the people, it's pushed by the industry, and we really want to have the change right now. So we have the big goal, and as you can see here at my screen, we of course everybody have these sustainable development goals that we have to work for, and one of the issues with that, if you turn one back, you can see that we actually have a lot of the goals are when we build in wood, we will fulfill some of the goals. Well, shall I take some of my action points? I don't know how much time.
Please. Okay, if you have a few minutes, so if you want to say a few words about your action points, please go ahead.
Well, very few, but as I said in the beginning, one of my issues right now is that we have to think to act more regenerative. I mean, when you make a goal of 70% reducing, you're not saying that we're not going to use it. Yeah, you said that in a long term, but my point is that we are already now going to say, how do we don't do less bad, but do good. Mm-hmm. And I think that using wood is one of the steps. And another one is that, well, we can all make some choices in our daily business. We can have when we build, but also when you buy in the shops, you can also choose wood. So of course, the big changes is going to be with the big investments when you build houses or new city hall and so on. But you just take the next picture. Then I went down out at my bathroom the other morning and say, okay, I actually have this choice every day because somehow I bought the wood stick and the plastic. So I mean that's one of the issues that you can actually make a daily choice. Last one, please. So as I said in the beginning, I'm working with the Institute for Future Studies, and one of our big questions is that how can we all contribute to this big change? Andrew and I, we are talking about the same things, that we really have to have the big change. And as we say at the Institute, most of the things are already invented. We just have to implement them. So we have the solutions. We just have to put on the speeder.
Okay. Andrew, maybe two questions. One on, if you come back slightly on cost, you say once you go above 3 or 4 floors, wood starts to be more costly. Mm-hmm. Is this something that will go on forever? Can we learn to be more efficient? And will the cost barrier be a hard barrier to tear down?
No, it's coming down. And I think as production scales up, it will continue to come down. If you just look at France and Germany in parallel, let's say Germany and Austria maybe have 10 or 15 years ahead of us at least. About 20% of the construction sector now is wood, and in France it's approaching 10. And we're accelerating very fast to get there. I mean, I think there also has to be an understanding on the part of developers and clients that you have to pay a little bit more if you actually want to play the game and be part of the solution and not part of the problem. And I think there are lots and lots of rules and regulations, probably way too confusing in France, which are well-intentioned but are very hard to keep up with. The government could do something very, very simple, a bit like what they've done with renovation. They could just say that, wood is a sort of essential product or biosourced materials, and we can put VAT at 5.5%.
An incentive.
An incentive, and that would be a sort of an appel d'air that would just sort of draw the industry forwards, and then I think all the other things would follow. And I wanted to also make the point that I think we do have to admit that we're in an international conversation, and that we are all helping each other. Countries are at very different stages of the game as this is going on. I learn a great deal. I know a lot of the leaders in the sector in the German-speaking countries, in Austria in particular. And, that sort of team spirit, the idea that we're actually helping each other, the fact that private companies, and it's the same in France, so think of developers like ICAD, who are putting the bar very, very high, above regulations for their own standards. People are taking this seriously. I think we have to, develop the networks and the forms of exchange, and maybe, lose some of the regulatory barriers between countries, because you're having to certify engineered products between one country and another, which provides quite a lot of friction. And then, this will be a very, very beautiful story, I think.
Before I give Nikolai a few words of conclusion, just you've traveled to Nordic countries, you've worked with Nordic countries.
Yep.
What do you think you could learn or bring back from them that can help you act or make this transition to wood construction faster in France? Is there something that they could teach us?
Yes, how to be happy. I think it's very important that there is this question, Nikolai used the word birthright, that there's an expectation that the world will be good. And then when you realize that actually we're destroying it, you have to take a very strong moral position in order to do something about that. And it's very nice that, that sort of alarm and the desire to get these things right is actually coming from a position of love, if you like, love for the world, a shared set of values, a state of mind. And I think that's something, it's harder to develop. We have three times more people in France and a very, very different cultural structure. But there are many, and I think, we're starting to see this particularly with younger generations. People don't just want to live harmlessly, they want to live well. And I think people realize that there's a very strong link between the two, that, doing good and feeling good are mutually reinforcing things.
Thank you. Nikolai, as a word of conclusion on the happiness side, is there something you could learn from sadness or the fact that we're sometimes complaining too much and that could push you also maybe to act as well and go faster in changes in Nordic countries?
Well, I can't say it more beautiful than Andrew just did. But we are more happy in all the Nordic countries, and of course, this is one of the issues. One of the other issues is that we have this welfare system and have built up a very big, trustable, secure system, and that system is also taking action in this case. Just before Christmas, the municipality of Aarhus, the second largest city in Denmark, just put a big amount to when they want to build new houses, they're all going to be more sustainable. And it's going to be a principle. So they already now know it's more expensive. So they already now took the money aside. And that's, of course, they know that the buildings will be more expensive or cost something, but then they know it will be more expensive, and then they put the money there. Yes, thank you very much. I think Andrew just make some of the best points here. So I can only repeat myself. Said the future starts now. Go
Okay.
act.
Thank you very, very much. Thank you, Nikolai. Thank you, Andrew.
Thank you,
Talk
Daniel.
to you soon and meet you again soon for other Nordic talks. Thank
Absolutely.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.